Hello, I'm Lily, and I'm 30 years old. I lost my parents when I was very young. They died in a car crash, and since they didn't have any family who could take care of me, I was sent to an orphanage. I stayed there for about 5 years until I was adopted. My adoptive parents turned out to be billionaires, so my life became pretty comfortable and happy after that. They didn't want my adoption to be a big deal, so they kept it private. They prefer to do good things quietly, without making a fuss. When I grew up and got my own place, my adoptive parents decided to travel around Europe to find new business opportunities. It was around that time I met Larry, my now ex-husband. We met in college and clicked right away. After a few conversations, I started liking Larry even more. He was a cheerful, kind guy who made me feel comfortable. Our dates soon turned into a serious relationship. We had what felt like the perfect relationship, except for one issue. Larry's family didn't like me. The first time I met them was after Larry and I had graduated from college. He waited until we both had good, stable jobs before introducing me to his parents. Larry had warned me that his family could be a bit judgmental when it came to the people their children dated, so I tried my best to make a good impression. I was really nervous when I finally met them. By then, Larry and I had been dating for about 6 years, and we were already engaged. I had a feeling that this might be a problem for his parents since they hadn't known me while I was just his girlfriend. I remember the day before we were going to meet Larry's parents. I was really nervous. "They're going to hate me, Larry," I said, feeling anxious. "They won't, I promise," Larry reassured me. "Don't you think they'll be shocked to find out we're engaged?" I asked. "Well, yeah, but I don't think it will be that big of a deal," he said. "Are you serious? You were worried about introducing me to them, because you know how judgmental they can be. And now you think telling them I'm your fiancé won't make it worse?" I asked, feeling doubtful. "Look, even if they do judge, does it really matter?" "It doesn't to me, but I don't know about you. You always seem so careful around them," Larry said. "I promise it won't change anything for me, Lily," he added. "All right, if you say so. But maybe we shouldn't tell them we're engaged right away. Maybe we can wait a month or so," I suggested. "If that makes you feel better, I'm okay with it," Larry said. "I don't mind either way. Let's keep it a secret for now, just to be safe." "I want them to like me," I said. "You have nothing to worry about. I'll be with you no matter what," he said, holding my hand. "Thanks, Larry," I replied. I had been so nervous because every time I suggested he tell his parents about me, he would get worried, saying they might not accept me. By then, I started to understand why. Larry's family was wealthy and liked to live a luxurious life. They wanted the same for their children and expected them to date people who were equally rich, or even richer. I didn't live up to their standards back then. I hadn't told Larry much about my background because I didn't think it was important. Besides, when I realized why he was hesitant about introducing me, I felt it was better not to mention who my father was. I wanted them to like me for who I was, not for my money. I naively thought they would accept me for myself, but I was so wrong. We decided to meet Larry's parents at a fancy restaurant. As we walked in, Larry held my hand tightly. I wore my engagement ring on a necklace instead of on my finger, just to keep things quiet. I wanted to keep the ring with me, without anyone noticing it. When we got to our table, Larry's parents already looked upset. Larry had warned me about this because they were very strict about being on time, and we were 5 minutes late. It felt like we were off to a bad start right away. His parents gave me a quick look, then frowned as if they were disgusted. They ignored me for a while and only talked to Larry. I felt so small and invisible sitting there. The more they ignored me, the stronger the urge to leave grew. I kept my head down until Larry finally tried to include me. "Mom, Dad, you can't just keep talking to me like this. This is my wonderful girlfriend, Lily," Larry said, trying to break the ice. "Oh, hello. It's a pleasure to meet both of you," I said politely.
"Hi."
"I wish I could say the same," Larry's mom replied coldly.
"Mom, what?"
Larry asked, surprised. "I'm just telling the truth," she said sharply. Then Larry's dad spoke up. "So, Lily, I heard you and Larry met in college, right?" he asked. "Yes, we did. We shared some classes together," I said. "And how did you manage to attend that college?" "From what I know, it's expensive and not easy to get into," he said, clearly skeptical. Dad, that's enough, Larry interrupted. Larry, don't speak to your father that way. It's a valid question, his mom said firmly. Lily, please answer him. Well, I got a full scholarship, I explained. I'm very grateful because I got to learn a lot and, of course, I met Larry, which has been one of the best things that happened to me. Of course, it's one of the best things that happened to you. He's rich, and you need that kind of money. At least you have some brains because you're not that good-looking, his mom said harshly. That's enough. We're leaving. Come on, Lily, Larry said, grabbing my hand. We walked out, and I was in shock at how his parents treated me. I couldn't believe people could be so openly cruel, right to my face. I was too stunned to even react. The car ride home was completely silent. Larry was fuming, and I just stared out the window, trying to make sense of what had happened. When we got home, Larry made sure to ask if I was okay, but honestly, I didn't even know how to feel. I dressed up nicely and made sure to sit properly. I didn't order anything expensive, trying my best to make a good impression. But somehow, without me even saying much, Amy and Adam had already decided what they thought of me. Larry didn't talk to his parents for a while after that. They texted him, saying we were disrespectful for walking out during lunch. Larry didn't reply until a month later, when he told them we were engaged. They weren't happy, but Larry warned them that he would cut off contact if they said or did anything against me. They offered to pay for our wedding, but only if they got to make all the decisions. Of course, neither Larry nor I liked that idea, so we chose to elope instead. My parents, who were in Europe at the time, knew about our decision. They were just happy that I was happy and even sent Larry and me a gift. Larry was a bit surprised when they sent us a very expensive painting, but I just said they had the money to do that, so it wasn't a big deal. After we got married, we met Amy and Adam again at a party they hosted. They invited us to celebrate their anniversary. Honestly, I was happy they invited me, even though I knew they didn't like me. But when we got there, I was ignored by everyone. If you think being ignored by 3 people is bad, imagine being ignored by about 40 people. It was much worse. I stayed close to Larry the whole night, but nobody talked to me. Whenever I tried to start a conversation, people would look me up and down and then walk away, or they would just keep talking to Larry like I hadn't said anything. By the end of the night, I was in tears. I felt humiliated and disgusted by how everyone treated me. Near the end of the party, the guests asked Amy and Adam to give a speech. I was tired and ready to leave, but I stayed to listen. In their speech, they began by saying how grateful they were to have almost everyone in the room in their lives. That was the first jab they took at me, and they kept making more throughout the speech. The guests laughed along with them, and at some point, I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up, left the room, ordered a lift, and went home. I cried the whole way home and kept crying until Larry got back. When he walked in, he looked upset and angry. Why did you walk out like that? Do you know how embarrassing that was for me? He said.
What?
What are you talking about? I asked, confused. Don't play dumb, Lily. My parents yelled at me, and a lot of the guests felt sorry for me because I'm with you, he said sharply. Are you serious? What about how embarrassing it was for me? I replied, feeling hurt. Come on, Lily. You could have put up with it for one night. It was my parents' anniversary, for God's sake, he said. I was ignored by everyone, and your parents made fun of me in their speech. How do you expect me to be okay with that? I said. I'm not saying they were right, but you could have just dealt with it. I would have talked to them later, Larry said. What would that have done for me? I don't like being put in situations where I'm just humiliated. Everyone was laughing at me. You've never had to feel that way, so it's easy for you to say it's no big deal, I said. My parents expect an apology from you, and I want one too, he said firmly. I'm not doing that unless they apologize to me first, I said. I don't see why you need an apology. I've always stood up for you, so why is this different, he asked. It's different because this time they embarrassed me, your wife, in front of everyone. Maybe my parents were right about you, he said coldly. Maybe your parents were right about me too, I said quietly. With that, Larry went to sleep in the guest bedroom. I couldn't understand why he had suddenly changed. It was always Larry who stood up for me, even when his parents said awful things. For me to walk out should have shown him just how hurt I was, but he didn't seem to care. For the next week, Larry didn't talk to me. His parents also sent me nasty texts, calling me ungrateful and an embarrassment. I tried to speak to Larry, but he kept shutting me out. Finally, I decided to apologize to him and his parents, even though it felt humiliating. I was willing to do it because I loved Larry, and I didn't want this to be the end for us. After that, things only got worse for me. Larry's parents retired and started hosting family dinners every week. Larry was always invited, and the first time they had one, he brought me along. As soon as I stepped inside their house, the mood in the room became tense. Amy was still getting ready, so she didn't see me right away, but Adam and Larry's siblings gave me awkward glances. No one spoke to me, and Larry left me standing alone while he chatted with his family. When Amy finally came downstairs and saw me, she rushed over, clearly furious. "What are you doing here?" she snapped. "Excuse me?" I said, taken aback. "No, I will not excuse you. What are you doing in my house?" she demanded. "Well, you invited us for dinner," I replied.
Wrong.
"I invited Larry." "This is a family dinner," she said sharply. "I'm Larry's wife, so I'm part of the family, aren't I?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "Absolutely not. An orphan like you doesn't belong in this family," she said, her voice full of disdain. "What? You can't seriously think that's a reason to exclude me," I said, shocked. "We do background checks on our children's spouses. You are not in my son's league, not even close. I will never accept you here," she said coldly.
Why?
"You can't just judge me based on that," I said, feeling hurt. "You're ugly and poor. You'd never fit into our elite circles," she said. "Why are you being so shallow? Are you really that worried I'll hurt your reputation just by being here? Doesn't the fact that I make your son happy matter to you?" I asked, struggling to hold back my emotions. "If happiness made money, everyone would be rich," she scoffed. "That's exactly why you'll never fit in with us. Or maybe I'll never be as shallow as you are, because I care about who a person really is." "You didn't even try to get to know me before judging me," I said. "Lily, that's enough," Larry interrupted, pulling out some cash. "Here, take this money and get yourself a lift." "Leave," he said, shoving the money into my hands. I stood there, stunned, looking at him as he turned back to his mother. She smirked at me, clearly satisfied. Tears filled my eyes as I turned and walked out. I cried the entire lift ride home. I couldn't understand why Larry had changed so much. Was this his way of making it up to his parents after what happened at the party? Whatever the reason, I felt hurt and angry. Larry was okay with his parents using my past against me, and instead of standing up for me like he always had, he was on their side. I wanted to shout and scream at him, but I knew that would only make things worse and prove them right about me. So I walked away, wondering what had gone wrong between us. I knew what I said was strong, but I didn't think I did anything wrong. I was just standing up for myself, and I did it calmly. After Larry got home, he went right back to not speaking to me. My heart was breaking, and I felt so alone. I knew he was expecting another apology from me, but I just couldn't do it. Like last time, Amy had insulted me in the worst way, and Larry was angry at me for it. I felt like he should be the one apologizing. For the next 3 weeks, Larry and I didn't talk. It was tough at first, but after a while, I got used to the silence. His family kept having their weekly dinners, and Larry would go alone while I stayed home. Honestly, I didn't mind being alone. One of those nights, my parents video called me. "Hey, honey," my dad said. "Hi, sweetie. How's it going?" my mom asked. "Hey, Dad." "Hey, Mom. Things aren't great," I admitted.
Why?
"What's wrong, sweetie? If you need help with anything, just let us know," Dad said. "I don't think it's something you guys can help with, but thanks," I said. "Where's Larry? Isn't he helping?" Mom asked. "That's the thing, he's part of the problem," I said, feeling frustrated. "Oh, sweetheart, can you tell us what's going on?" Mom asked. "Well, his parents are wealthy and very snobby," I explained. "Oh, I can't stand people like that," Dad said.
Exactly.
"They see me as a poor girl who will never be good enough for their fancy circles. They've gone out of their way to humiliate me every time I see them," I said.
What?
"That's awful," Mom said, sounding shocked. Yeah, and the last time I was at their house, Larry's mom called me an orphan as an insult, I said. That woman. How dare she call my precious child an orphan? I want to slap her. Mom said angrily. Do they not know about us? And what about Larry? What has he been doing through all this? I didn't tell them about you, because I knew they'd treat me differently if they knew. I wanted them to like me for who I am, not for my family's money. As for Larry, he's been siding with them. He thinks I was rude when I stood up for myself, I said, feeling the pain all over again. Honey, are you sure this is the man you want to be with?
Dad asked gently.
I love him a lot, but I don't want things to be this way. We haven't spoken for 3 weeks, and honestly, I'm okay with it, I said. All right, sweetie. I'll connect you with one of my friends over there. Don't worry about us not being able to help. We're here for you, Dad said reassuringly. I think we might be able to help you get a bit of sweet revenge, Mom said with a grin. Huh? What do you mean? I asked, confused. Your dad and I are coming to visit next week. We originally planned to take you and Larry on a vacation, but now we'll just take you instead. More fun for us, she said. Really? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to finally see you both in person again, I exclaimed. It was the first time in a while that I felt truly happy. We kept talking for a while, and Dad started to tell me more about his plan to help me. He asked where Larry's family dinners were usually held. I told him that they alternated between their house and different restaurants. Conveniently, the week my parents were visiting, the dinner was scheduled to be at a restaurant. I needed to find out exactly where the dinner would be so I could let my parents know. Luckily, I had access to Larry's email on my phone, and if there was one thing I knew about Amy and Adam, it was that they loved emailing everyone every detail. It wasn't hard to get the location, and I passed it on to my parents. At the same time, Mom's lawyer friend contacted me, and we started the process of filing for divorce. When my parents arrived, they checked into a hotel, and I met them there. We had lunch together, and then they sent me off for a spa day, which they fully paid for because they thought I deserved some pampering. While I relaxed, they were getting ready to surprise my in-laws. My parents walked into the restaurant where Larry and his family were having their dinner. According to Dad, as they approached the table, Adam and Amy began to whisper when they recognized him. Mom later told me how the conversation went. Hello, my dad said with a big smile. Oh my gosh, Mr. Jeremy. What brings you here? Amy said, clearly surprised. Well, I happen to see some familiar faces, so I thought I'd drop by and maybe join you, Dad said casually. Familiar faces? Who are you talking about, Mr. Jeremy? Adam asked, confused. Well, I see Larry here, Dad said, glancing at him. Hello, sir. A pleasure to meet you. Your daughter has mentioned you a lot, Larry said, looking a bit nervous. But speaking of my daughter, where is she? Dad asked, raising an eyebrow. Your daughter? I'm afraid there's been a mistake. She's not here, Amy said, trying to keep her cool. But she should be, right? I'm sorry, Mr. Jeremy, but we didn't even know you had a daughter, Adam said, sounding confused. Of course I have a daughter, Dad said firmly. And she's married to Larry. What? I'm sorry, but I think you're mistaken, Amy said, looking confused. Yes, Larry's wife is named Lily, and she was an orphan. Yes, I know that, my dad said calmly. That's why we adopted her. Excuse me? You're her dad? Adam asked, shocked. Yes, I am. And from what I can see, Lily isn't here tonight. She's told me that there have been problems with her in-laws, and now I understand why. The problem is clearly you, my dad said firmly. No. The problem is that she kept this huge secret from us. Amy exclaimed. If we had known, we would have treated her better. She didn't want you to be nice to her just because of her background, my dad replied. Oh, well, Amy said, clearly flustered. Lily asked me to give something to Larry, my dad said, pulling out an envelope. He handed it to Larry, who opened it with shaking hands. It was the divorce papers. After that, my dad walked out of the restaurant without another word. It only took a few phone calls for things to start changing. My dad's contacts were powerful, and soon enough, many investors began pulling their money out of Adam's business. His company was quickly heading for disaster. It was strangely satisfying to watch their world crumble, the way they had looked down on me. Not long after, I started getting a flood of texts from Larry's family. Some were full of insults, calling me all kinds of nasty names. Others were begging me to talk to my dad and somehow undo what he had done. But it was too late for that. Thankfully, Larry didn't make a fuss about the divorce. He signed the papers without any trouble. It was over. After everything settled down, my parents and I went on a long vacation. It was exactly what I needed. I had the time of my life, relaxing and enjoying my parents' company. Slowly, I began to heal from everything that happened. Losing someone I thought was the love of my life was painful, but I learned something important. I had to stand up for myself, even when it was hard. I'm so grateful to my parents for everything they did for me. They showed me what real support and love look like, and I'm excited to see what new adventures life will bring.